Hey, I want to talk to you for a few minutes about discretion. You know, this is something, it's one of our more advanced principles in police dynamics, and we have a character quality called discretion, which is avoiding words, actions, and attitudes that could have undesirable consequences. That would be a definition of discretion as a character quality. But I want to talk to you about discretion in a different use of that word as it relates to police discretion, because it has to do with choices. It has to do with making choices about how you exercise your authority. So we can use a definition of police discretion as the judicious exercise of executive authority, or the just exercise might be a better way to say it, of executive authority. In another video, perhaps we'll talk about the difference between justice and fairness, but we're all about justice. This is the criminal justice system that we represent. And so discretion, by and large, or at least to a very large degree, has been taken away from us over the years. And the reason, either by the legislature or by the judiciary, and the reason that police discretion has been limited so extensively in the past couple of decades is because we've used it improperly. We have made discretionary decisions about how we would enforce the law, whether we make an arrest, whether we write a ticket, whatever it may be, based on things other than the principles of good character. Maybe we made the decision based on who the person was related to, what their last name they had, how pretty she was. All sorts of other factors might enter into our decision. You know, is it the beginning of the shift or is it the end of the shift? I mean, these kinds of things are not based upon the principles of good character. And as a result, we've seen our discretion limited extensively. I mean, how many of you work in states where you have mandatory arrest laws, for example, when it comes to criminal domestic violence, or have laws and legislation that prohibits you from, say, dismissing a DUI charge or something of that nature? So a lot of that discretionary authority has been limited severely either by the legislature or by the judiciary. Now, if you think about it, in the role of government, there's always discretion. Discretion can be a good thing, it is a good thing, if it's used properly, if it's used justly, judiciously, and exercised appropriately. It can be one of the most powerful tools that we have at our discretion. I mean, think about it. Judges have discretion. There's judicial discretion. They decide, you know, whether or not, what level of penalty or sentence they might give to somebody that's convicted in the court. Maybe they got some guidelines. You know, they can operate within the framework of those guidelines. But the bottom line is they have a tremendous amount of discretion when it comes to imposing a sentence. Prosecutors have discretion. Prosecutorial discretion, whether or not you'll even take a case to trial. Appellate level courts have appellate discretion, or certiorari, as we might call it as well, when they decide if they're even going to hear a case. And of course, the legislature has huge discretion. Think about it, they don't have to pass a law, they don't want to, so they have the discretion to do that. But our discretion is limited because we made bad choices, or choices based upon bad principles. I remember back in the early days of law enforcement, we actually had a lot on the uniform traffic ticket form that you could indicate the attitude of the offender. And when you went to court, one of the first things the judges would ask you was, what was their attitude? And if their attitude was good, they might be a little bit more lenient. If their attitude was bad, disrespectful to authority, etc., then the penalty would be more harsh as a result. And there's nothing wrong with that if it's done properly and appropriately. It's very similar to our dynamic of discipline, in that you have to let the nature of the offense determine what range of options that you have available, and then allow the character of the offender to determine which option that you choose. This is the dynamic of discretion. We have a whole dynamic associated with it. We identify the 5 types of offenders and how to determine what level of offender that you're dealing with based upon their character and cues and clues that they might give during that initial encounter. You're doing a lot of this already. You're doing it innately out there on the street, where you evaluate situations, you evaluate people, you size them up very quickly, and you come to the conclusion of their characters, the good, the bad, the rebellious, truthful or not truthful. We do this all the time. We call it street savvy. So I'm saying, take the street savvy, apply the principles of good character, let the nature of the offense determine the range of options, but then let the character of the offender determine which option that you choose. So in future videos we'll try to explore this dynamic in a little bit more detail. We can identify the 5 types of offenders, we can identify the ranges of options that might be available to you, and then give you some clear tactical decision-making skills so that you can make good decisions out in the field or even later on about how you would deal with a particular case from a discretionary point of view. Until next time, Sheriff Ray Nash, Riviera Maya.